right. I'm giving it just a minute. A lot of people still connecting to the audio. We'll have this going though in just another minute or so. Looks like we got a full house, so that's pretty cool.
Yes, sir. And more people coming in.
Yeah.
All right, Pete, I see some familiar faces in there. Pete, good to see you.
All right. Just sorry, I'm trying to manage the waiting room and keep people coming in. And
I can pitch in with that too, CB, as they come
oh
in.
yeah, that's
I
great.
can just grab them.
I'll keep on moderating the chat, and I will keep letting people in throughout this whole session. So that way you two can focus on your conversations.
Sounds
Perfect.
good.
Thank you, Phil.
All right, let's get rolling here. So I want to introduce everybody to David Mykel. David's the founder of Psychology Fitness, or the Psychology Fitness movement. He's the creator of Psyfi. And Psyfi is a scientifically proven system that turns your brain, body, and breath, or trains your brain, body, and breath as one. David's been studying brain psychology for over 25 years, and he has been involved in fitness at a high level for over 30 years. He was a D1 scholarship athlete. He's also been a professional athlete. He's been a litigation psychologist for Fortune 100 companies, and he's trained over 5,000 executives and athletes from over 51 countries worldwide. In addition to that, he just happens to live at Copper Mountain. He's done training with our staff this season, and over the last 2 seasons, he's been doing some group sessions and some one-on-ones with our athletes. So that's enough of me yapping. I'm going to turn this over to David and let him tell you what he has for us tonight.
All right, CB, thank you so much. And thank you, Phil, for doing the tech for us today. Welcome, parents. It's a pleasure to be here. As CB said, I've been working with Team Summit over the last couple of seasons, and we've had some great successes. And today, what I want to talk about is the training programs that I've been working, training protocols I've been working on, not only with the teams, some staff, but also all of your athletes. And hopefully they've been mentioning this. We've had great success on individual levels and team levels so far. But as you know, being a parent, one of the most important things that we can do is create an environment for this kind of stuff to thrive. Because you can have all the tools and the tactics, and your child can have best intentions, but if we don't have an environment that is going to help them thrive and grow, we're going to be kind of at a detriment. So today we're going to spend 30 minutes to get together today. I'm going to share my screen because I have some slides that I've prepared. And we're going to get into this. So first and foremost, let me just, this is playing a little, there we go. All right, so what I want to do is I want to address how to support your high-performing athlete. You know, as I said before, there's no question that each and every one of you love your children and love your athletes. And at this time, we make sure that everything that me, Steve, and the rest of the Team Summit have been working on with them over this season can be planted in really fertile ground. So what we're going to go over today is a few things. So one, I'm going to teach you a couple of tools and tactics that I've been working with your kids and your athletes on. Two, we're then going to kind of go into what we can learn from this. And then lastly, we're going to go over what I call QCCs, questions, comments, and concerns. So anything that you hear today that you want to know more about, anything that you had a question about, anything you want to know, a little bit of a deeper dive, we're going to take a moment towards the end to go over that. But before we go into that, what I want to talk to you about today is the things that I've been teaching your athletes and all of Team Summit are the same things that I've been teaching my athletes from day one. These are the same athletes that have been in the Olympics 4 times, that have won applied anywhere. So I want to give you a little what to expect to start off here. First, we're going to go over this, what we call the psychology fitness fundamentals. Psychology fitness is the industry that I did start approximately 6 years ago. I'll tell you a little bit more my background and why I'm qualified to make the claims and kind of what we do. We're also going to touch on our B3 methodology. This is the scientifically validated methodology that I created that we've been measuring since day one, and it's been proven to be over 98% effective with our athletes as well as executives. And then lastly, probably the thing that each one of you is here for is how to be a supportive parent. And each one of you is probably already an amazing parent if you're raising a high-performing child. At the same time, if you're like me, I'm always looking for ways that I can get better, particularly ways that are been proven, that are tactical, and that are scientific. So before we jump into that, I just want to give you a little bit of an idea of who I am. So as CB said, my name is David Mykel. For my physical background, I come from 30 plus years as a high performance athlete. This includes playing professional baseball, a Division I scholarship athlete, being one of the highest recruited players in New York State when I graduated high school going to college. I'm also a certified personal trainer, and I'm a multi-sport coach. I've been coaching people in rock climbing, surfing, Muay Thai, and snowboarding for well over a decade now. And I've tested these things that I'm going to teach you today in over 50 countries. Now, from the psychology side, I have been studying psychology for over 25 years. I'm an accredited psychologist, as well as been studying neuroscience for over 12 years. And my previous career before I started Psyfi 6 years ago was 13 years as a litigation psychologist working with Fortune 100 companies. So the reason why I tell you all this is that I want you to know that you can trust me. Not only have I taken the classes, got the education, what I'm going to teach you today to each and every one of you, because one of the biggest things that we hear is that I wish I had this when. Now I'm 44 years old. I've been competing since I was 13. I wish I had this when I was 13 years old. I wish I knew anything that we were going to talk about today when I was 13. I wish I knew this when I was 20, 25, even 30. The things that we talk about at Psyfi, the things that we teach in regarding psychology fitness are made to work with the way your body and brain have developed, but they're also systematic and tactical. And so I want to make sure that you understand that right from the beginning. So Maya Angelou has this famous quote, and I love this. People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And so what we're going to do before I talk about what psychology fitness is, before I explain the B3 methodology, before we go into any of that, I want you to feel it with me. So what we're going to do is we're going to do one of my favorite exercises that I use, can be done anywhere, anytime. As you can see, I'm sitting in my studio right now in an office chair with a button-down shirt on. This can be done standing up. This can be done sitting down. This is completely up to you. If you've had a day, which most of us do on a regular basis, at 6:30, each one of us is probably a little bit stressed, maybe a little bit tired, a little bit worn down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how psychology fitness actually can be used on a regular basis, and how training your brain, body, and breath together can lead to results that training them separately never can. So what we're going to do a simple exercise together. We call these neck rolls. Now, before I demonstrate these, what I'd like to say is, first and foremost, if you feel any pain, now we're going to define pain as sharp, shooting, or stabbing while you're doing this exercise, please stop immediately. Pain is an indication from your body to your brain that something is wrong and it needs to change. And if you don't change that, we're going to get injured. So if you feel pain at any point in time, please stop. However, if you feel any tension or tightness, or you hear or feel snap, crackle, or pop, just like the cereal, and there's no pain associated with it, you're totally fine. Welcome to your body exploring a new range of motion, a new place that it hasn't been in a while that it needs to be in. So let's do this. Let's each one of us just sit back. If you're standing up, you can also stand up. I'll ask you to have, if you're standing up, have a good posture. So the posture would be feet about as wide as your hips to shoulders. For all of us that are sitting down, you're just going to drop your shoulders down and back kind of. You're going to make sure your spine's in a neutral position. And we're going to do 10 neck rolls in each direction. At Psyfi, we do things we call bilaterally, which means both sides, and we do it bidirectionally, both directions. So we're going to make sure that we cover both of those in our neck rolls today. Neck rolls are super simple. The first step is drop your chin to your chest, your ear to your shoulder, your crown of your head back, ear to shoulder, chin to chest. Now, what that looks like in real time, and CB's already started because he's done these with me before, is simply just rolling your neck back and forth. And just kind of almost getting your chin and scraping your collarbone. So before we start this all together, one thing I'm going to ask you to do, I want to use this as a stress release. I want to use the time for you to focus. I want to use the time to reset because you're about to transition to something different than you were doing earlier today. So I'm going to ask you to close your eyes and close your mouth. The reason why we do this, one, if your mouth is open, your mandible, which is your jaw, is actually jointed. So it's going to open up a little bit. You won't get as deep as a stretch. Two, if your mouth is open and you're breathing in through your mouth, your amygdala, your fight or flight center can turn on. So you're not going to de-stress, you're not going to focus, you're not going to transition properly. The reason why I want you to close your eyes. Our eyes are part of our brain. They're actually our brain on the outside of our skull, and they're taking in millions of bits of information a second. And what ends up happening is that, as most of us know, we can get overwhelmed throughout our day by taking in too much information. I want you to simply give yourself a chance to close your eyes and just relax. So you're just going to be here with me. So what we're going to do, we're going to sit back. We're going to drop our shoulders. We're going to close our eyes if you feel comfortable. We're going to close our mouths, breathing in and out of our nose only. Let's drop our chin to our chest. And now let's roll simply to the right, going in a clockwise direction. Nice and easy, and explore. I just want you to get a couple reps underneath you first. And now let's just pause for 1 second. Now that you know what that feels like and what we can do with it, we're very scientific at Psyfi, so it means we're always measuring. So what I'd like each one of you to do is to measure your stress level right now on a scale of 1 to 10. 1, David, I'm super stressed out. I've had a really bad day. You know, my mind's frantic. 10, or sorry, that's 10. 1 being I'm super calm, cool, relaxed, and collective. Just give yourself a number. You don't have to share it with anyone. We're going to just take a simple second to give yourself the number. For me, and I'm sick, and if you hear me cough at any point in time, I do apologize. I am dealing with a really bad cold today. So for me, I'm probably about a 4 or 5. But see where you are. Stress level 1, nothing going on. Stress level 10, freaking out. Right. This is just your brain and your body getting used to something it hasn't done in a while. So let's keep that going. Let's do 3 more. Good. 2 more. And the last one on this side. Good. And while your mouth is closed and your eyes are closed, let's go back now. Let's go to the left side. So counterclockwise. And again, just explore the motion. Let your body settle in. Let that breath calm down. Let your brain just be focused on nothing other than the movement. Now, as we're doing this on one side, I also want you to just see, where do you feel that it's tighter on one side? Where do you feel looser as you roll? Remember, it's a neck roll, so it's all the way around. So you're going to roll that neck, exploring that. We'll do 3 more of these. And I'm just bringing to mind is that the reason why we train bilaterally and bidirectionally for our bodies at Psyfi is because we all have asymmetries and imbalances. The more asymmetrical, the more imbalanced we are, the more likely we are to injure ourselves. So what you're doing right now is using this simple exercise as a protocol and understand where you are right now. So as everyone comes into our last one, I'm simply come back to center, and I'd like you just to open your eyes and then take a note of see how you feel. So now re-rate yourself, scale 1 to 10. Where are you now? 1, calm and cool. 10, I'm still freaking out. If you in the chat box, I'd like to put any of you just put a Y if you move down. Just put a Y in the chat box for me. If you move down from where you were when we first started to where you are now. All right, good. So what you've experienced right there is what Psychology Fitness is all about. It's brain, body, breath training as one. Now, something as simple as doing a neck roll can allow you to, and let's see if we're all getting here. Yes, good. Yeah, whys everywhere. I have done this probably tens of thousands of times with people, and it's been a rarity, maybe 1% of the time, does someone not move it. So this is what I've been teaching your children. This is what I'm teaching your athletes. This is what I want to teach you today, is what Psychology Fitness is. So now, has anyone heard of Psychology Fitness before, other than if they talked about it with their children? And if you have, just put a simple "I have" in the chat box. Okay, nobody. All right, so this is I have. All right, thank you, Amanda. Melissa as well, Melissa and Pat. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so hopefully you've heard this from either CB, you've heard this from your children. So what Psychology Fitness is that it's something that I created about 6 years ago and need for myself. And what I found out, and here's what I believe, is that when you combine these two seemingly disparate words, into one and train them in a very scientific and specific way, you can get a result from training them that you never could by being separate. What you end up doing is you end up being focused and calm, energized, yet relaxed. You're able to tap into mental states, physical states that you were unable to get to before. This is kind of unlocking this last 10 to 20% of our maximum potential. In this state, a whole new perspective is going to open up for you. You believe you become limitless, or we call these flow states as well. And what we figured out at Psyfi is scientific ways to do this on a day-by-day, moment-by-moment basis. One of the things I just taught you so far was neck rolls. It's combining psychology, your brain, allowing your brain to calm down for a little bit, close your eyes, reset, transition into this new part of your evening, as well as the fitness part of it by using your body to move, so that we can either dispel energy if we have nervous, anxious energy going on, or we can create energy. And what we've done what we've figured out is that we developed this thing called the train like you play philosophy. And it's allowed us to do is come up with a lot of benefits that Psychology Fitness training has given you. First one is self-confidence. Second one is acceptance. This is basically, so I'll be very brief with these because we'll talk more about these later. So, but acceptance is about just accepting what happened. Maybe we didn't place. Maybe we didn't get that job interview. Maybe we didn't have that talk we wanted to have with our spouse. Acceptance is one of the biggest things that we focus on here at Psyfi. Again, focus is what we're known for. This is the one thing that we've become famous for, we call it training our focus muscles. This is one of the things that we've been doing with Team Summit exclusively over the last couple of seasons. We also look at increasing motivation, increasing perseverance, allowing people to be more decisive, and last but not least, overcoming fear, because we found that performance anxiety is one of the #1 things that athletes face. And this is what a lot of our program today has been based on. So the problem now I believe that we're facing in today's society is something that we like to call at Psyfi, train like you play. We simply don't train like we need to play. And now this is what gave birth to our B3 or the B3 methodology, which is what I'm going to talk about in a second. Now, typical psychology and fitness models are psychology. We therapy, we go talk to coaches, but we sit there sedentary most of the time, and we don't really do much more than that. Our bodies are kind of inactive. The typical fitness model is you go to the gym, you get beat up, you sweat, you're on the ground, panting and huffing afterwards, and you're basically just trying to forget about everything that happened before. But what I say is, how can we ask our brain and our body to behave and perform at a high level together if we don't train them together? And this is what we like to call train like you play at Psyfi. Now, this train like you play thought gave birth to what I now call our B3 methodology: brain, body, and breath training together. So here's my belief, and the internal research we've done with over 5,000 participants has proven this over the last 6 years, is that you can't change your brain without changing your body, and you can't change your body without changing your brain. So think about this for a second. You're all asking your brain, your body, and your breath to perform at a high level all day, every day. You're actually doing it right now. You're sitting upright or you're standing, you're breathing, and you're trying to process what I'm saying. But these three components are never trained separate, or never trained together. They're usually trained separately. As I mentioned before, our brain, what do? We go to work, we're sedentary at our desk, we sit in Zoom meetings all day, and we're asking our brain to tune in, but our body's not moving. And then if you're like me, I'll like to go to the gym sometimes at night, and then I want my brain to tune out. I just want to focus on the gym and I don't want to think about anything. So I'm just using my body. And then my breath is involuntary. We breathe up to 100,000 times a day, but thank God none of us have to think about our breath. But here's my question for you. How can three things perform at a high level together if we don't train them together? Simple logic alone lets us know that that can't happen. I use this for our skier athletes. I said, what if one day your coach showed up and said, hey, we're just going to work on our left leg today on the mountain. And they come back the next day, we're just working on our right leg today at the mountain. Come back on Wednesday, it's just our left arm. Come back on Thursday, just our right arm. And then we go to competition on Friday and we expect all four of those things to perform at a high level together. It just doesn't make sense. Yeah, all of it have been sold a bill of goods through the psychology and the fitness industry that if we train these things separately, they can perform at a high level together. Now, I think all of you now can agree with me, and if we were able to see it, how to show this in a methodical way of hands. But is there anyone that doesn't understand what I'm talking about right now, understand the importance of what I'm talking about right now? And if you do, just put a question mark in the chat right now. All right, good. So we're all on the same page. So let's get into the nitty gritty of what each and every one of you is here to learn today. Like I said, today, first I wanted to talk just about who we are at Psyfi and what we do and what we've been training and what we've been giving to your athletes. Now I want to get to a place where I can help each and every one of you, because as parents, you are the paragons of your household. You are going to be able to determine how far your athlete can go and follow their dreams, whether that's going on to be pro, whether that's going to be a collegiate athlete, maybe it's just going on for a club team and being highly competitive the rest of their life. So what I want to talk about today is I want to give you 3 different categories that we're going to talk about of ways that I have found out parents can be supportive of their athletes. Now, I do not have children, but 92% of my clients do have children. And I've also taken these points that I'm going to make tonight from people that they're not only parents, but they also were former professional athletes. This comes from CB, actually gave me a little bit of insight in this. Thank you, CB, for that. This also came from a couple of my board members who are ex-professional athletes who also have children. One of them has up to 5 children, and he's a coach for their team, so he knows quite a bit about this. So I want you to know that what I'm talking about today comes from a place of knowing, and this is what we're going to get into right now. So first and foremost, we want to show unconditional love. Now, I know that each and every one of you loves your kids. Obviously, you put the time and effort to get them in Team Summit. You show up early on weekends to bring them to the mountains. You stay late when they're going to Woodward or they're training there. So we have no doubt that you love them. But what we want to talk about today is just a little bit of unconditional love. So we said that love, or the perception of love, should never be connected to participation or outcome in a sport. So this is one of the things that some of us get confused with. And not we get confused about necessarily, but our children can be confused in it. Because if we basically show how much we love our children through how they participated or how they showed up or how they scored or how they placed, what they start doing is making what we call a neural connection in their brain. If I place better, my parents love me more. And this connection starts firing. And the more that it happens, the more that it's likely to come up for them easier and easier and easier. This is called Hebb's law in neuroscience. They call it neurons that fire together, wire together. So once they start making this connection, what happens if they stop performing? What happens if they get injured? I'm working with a few pro athletes right now who are injured and are dealing with this right now. Are they under the assumption that maybe my parent will take their love from me? Now, unless you're talking about this with them on a real-time basis, they don't know. And as we know, kids have incredible imaginations. One of the things we celebrate kids for more than anything else. So you want to make sure that you're being just very aware of that neural connection that can potentially be there. Because at some point, they're going to stop achieving athletically. They're going to be disinterested in the sport. Maybe they'll plateau because of where they want to go with this. Or maybe they're just bored of it. We need to make sure we're still being there for them in a way that they know we still love them, regardless of how they participate, how they show up, how they score. Now, of course, you want them to do their best, and we'll talk about that in our second point here. But what ends up happening is that if a child, has this disconnection, or this connection, even more specifically, of succeeding in love, which this can lead at one point to the no longer having value and no longer being worthy of love. One of the number one things that I've seen in my clients, whether they're 7-year-old athletes or 76-year-old retirees, is that we have a common belief that we're not enough. This is the core, we call this a core belief. And it's one of the things that drive us, particularly high-performing athletes. We want to make sure that we're addressing that in the way that we interact with our kids, because the mental health consequences of not feeling enough can be suicide, depression, addiction, things that I've all had, unfortunately, personal experience with, and which led me to start Psyfi. So what's one of the tactics that you can use to make sure that you're not getting too caught up in the outcome is keep focused on the process. Being process oriented, not outcome oriented. Talking to your kids, hey, did you show up today? Did you do your best? Did you push your extra limits today? That's focusing on the process. Hey, you didn't land that trick yet? That's okay, you're going to get it. The more that you work, the more the likelihood that you are going to land this trick, the more likely that you're going to get on that podium. Because when we focus on the outcome, you have to realize it's something we cannot control. When we give our power to something we can't control, that becomes a dangerous, slippery slope. And if you're like me, I've done that numerous times throughout my career, multiple careers, where I got too focused on the outcome. And if I didn't land that client, if we didn't win that case, if I didn't win that game, my whole mental space was caved in, was devastated. So the number one tactic you can do to be continuing showing unconditional love to your athletes while being supportive in this way is keep them focused on the process, not the outcome. And this also goes for each one of you. If your child doesn't podium, that's okay. Did he or she do her best? Okay, great. That's worth celebrating. This is another tactic that I'll talk briefly about too. Celebrate the wins with your athlete. The win doesn't always have to be getting on the podium. The win doesn't always have to be getting a medal. The win doesn't always have to be placing. The win doesn't have to be being on the starting team. The win doesn't always have to be getting an A+. The win can be, did you study? Did you try hard? Did you show up? Did you go to all your practices? Those are all things you can start to celebrate with them. And I'd encourage you to celebrate these each and every day. And we'll talk about this in a third bullet, more specifically about ask curious questions. So show unconditional love, the 2 tactics, we're all about tactics Psyfi. 1, keep them focused on the process, not the outcome. 2, make sure you're celebrating the wins with them. All right, second one we're going to talk about today is modeling positive behavior. Now, whether you know it or not, your kids admire and emulate you. If you have teenagers that may not feel that way, this is a common theme I hear from a lot of my parents, is that it's very difficult to talk to their teenagers. And of course, if you remember being a teenager at one point, we were kind of not the kindest to our parents. But at the same time, your kids admire you. They want to emulate you. They're watching you, your behaviors, your good, the bad, and everything in between. Parents are the primary role model for your children's behaviors, not their friends, not their teachers. You've been with them longer. You have more hours with them typically in a day. So they're going to be watching you. So if positive behaviors are modeled, they can be repeated by the child and ingrained in their personality. One of the things that all your children are doing right now is that they're forming their character and personality as we speak. From 7 to 21 are the key years for developmental psychology. They're becoming who they're going to be as adults. So these moments matter. So one of the things we want to make sure is that you are engaging in positive and productive behaviors because they are going to model those. So one of the things that actually you do is to look at your own life. Where in your life can maybe you have a more positive impact on your child? Do you come home from work sometimes you're stressed out and sometimes you bring home work? Do you not make time, even if one of your children wants to ask a question and you may be too busy? I know time is one of the most precious commodities we have, but remember, your children are emulating you. So look at these little things throughout your life. Take a hard look in the mirror. I'm going to encourage each and every one of you to do this when we finish up today, is just see what in my life can I change? If I want the best for my kid, there's got to be the best for me first. And I call this, you can't give what you don't have. If you don't have patience, you can't expect your child to have patience on snow or in the classroom. If you don't have forgiveness for yourself, instead you exercise self-judgment and criticism, which is what a lot of us high performers do, your children are going to have that same thing, except they don't have the mental faculties and the experience that you do in order to handle this. So look at those things. And here's what I'll ask you to do. Here's one of the tactics to implement here. And this is I'm going to push and challenge each one of you here. Ask them to make an agreement with you about how you will support them on a path to their goal. Actually go to your children and ask them to engage in an agreement with you. Make this real. Don't make this something that you're just thinking about or you're supposing is going to happen or you think they know. Actually go and talk to them about this. I think you'll be surprised that making a verbal agreement, or maybe even written if you want to make it really good, with your children brings it to a next level. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna acknowledge this will not be easy for you, but your job is to love them and nudge them enough in the right directions to make them uncomfortable each and every day to pursue those goals. We'll talk about goals in just a second, but have that agreement with them. That's my challenge to you. Here's the second tactic I want you to employ with modeling positive behavior. Get them to set goals without your guidance. So when you have this agreement with them, ask them to go make up their own goals. No more than 3. I'd make them SMART, so specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and time-bound, something we specialize in helping our athletes with at Psyfi. And then have them come back to you with their goals. Here's the reason. Ownership. Anyone, us, our spouses, our children, our employees, our colleagues, protect and go after more of what they create than what we tell them to create. I want you to get A's in school. Well, okay, great. They may do that to appease you, but they may not really have a really drive for it. So this is really important. Have them come up with goals on their own. They're going to be more attached to their goals. They're going to be more invested in their goals. They're going to be more protective of their goals because they knew they came from them and not from you. All right. Last one we'll talk about for the tactic on this one is to set milestones. And this goes back to celebrating the win. Once you have their goals listed, they set milestones along the way. So these can be incremental things. So if we say, let's use an example of doing a 720 as a skier or a snowboarder. Okay, well, the first portion of that is you got to be able to do a 180. Then you got to do a 360. Then you got to do a 540. And then finally, you can go for a 720. Have these milestones along the way that helps them get to that goal in an incremental way that they can celebrate. Remember, celebrating the wins is one of the best ways we can show unconditional love. And as a high performer, this is the number one thing that I've realized. All high performers that I've ever worked with, whether they're executives or athletes, whether they're 7 years old or 76 years old, male, female, it doesn't matter. We all suck at celebrating the wins, myself included. Some people call this gratitude practice. We call it a little bit different because some people have a little bit, even myself included, have a little bit of problems with the word gratitude. So we talk about celebrating the wins. If you're doing this every week with your children, you're going to see improvement. You're going to see that neurons firing together where more positivity comes evident in their lives. I would even say that if you have dinner with your children each night or every other night, whatever the case is, try to do this with them. I'll give you some tactics right at the end here with asking curious questions of exactly how to do that. But celebrate these wins. This has been huge for me and my clients and all my athletes that I've been working with over the years, is seeing this one thing shift their focus, their mindset from being negative oriented, being anxiety ridden, to being more positive, more confident, more driven, all those benefits we talked about before. All right, last but certainly not least, ask curious questions. Ask curious questions. And what you're trying to do is help them learn and understand what they actually desire and what results that they want. So what does this mean? Now, I know that having conversations with your children, particularly if they're teenagers, can be difficult sometimes, right? They're going through a lot of changes. They're going through changes at school. They're going through changes hormonally. So sometimes the connection necessarily isn't always there, or it can be more difficult to foster. But as I said before, they are emulating you. They want to be like you. So if you have these difficult conversations with them to start, they're more likely to have them with you in the long run. So what do? We ask curious questions to show that we're interested and to find out what our children are interested in. I find this a lot of times that my clients who have children assume this is what their kid's into because this is what they kind of talk about a little bit, or this is what their actions are around. But when then I've encouraged them to have these conversations, they've learned so much that they're only scratching the surface of what their children were actually interested in and what their child wanted to do. What is it this does is not only it deepens the relationship between you and your child, it deepens the child's awareness of their own desires and their values. It also allows perspective from each one of you to understand where they're at. And since you already know what their goals at and you have more life experience, you're going to be able to understand how to get them there, how to help get them there in a more efficient, streamlined manner. This is one of the things that we all do as coaches, and each one of you as a parent is a coach. So this is probably one of the most invaluable tools that I can give you today is the questions I'm going to list for you right now. Now I'd ask you to write them down. If not, I'll share something with you a little bit of how you can get these questions. So the first one is, hey, what are the highlights of your day today? Not how was your day? We're very specific with our language at Psyfi. For any of you that are married, I'd ask you to do the same thing. Do not ask your spouse, how was your day? Be more tactical with this. If the result that you want is them to share something with you that's positive and uplifting and about who they are, what were the highlights of your day? What was your biggest takeaway? Maybe they're in class, or they had a Psyfi training session or a team summit training session. Hey, what did you learn today? What was your biggest takeaway? And I notice I pair those together because you can start with what did you learn, but a lot of parents ask this question and it can go in a very generic direction. What your biggest takeaway is more specific because you're asking them what moved the needle, what blew your brain today, what gave you one of those aha moments, what's something that you would love to tell one of your friends, maybe your younger brother or younger sister about. Here's another one. If you find your kid spiraling a little bit, we call the downward spiral, kind of getting down a little bit or kind of being stuck. Hey, what are you focusing on? Typically, they're focusing on the negative. They're focusing on what they can't control. We do this as adults as well. But when you ask that simple question, you're giving them an opportunity to shift their focus onto positive stuff. This is also why I say celebrating the wins is so important. Every day, if you're asking them, hey, what wins do you have today? Every session I have with my one-on-one clients, this is how we start. What were your 3 wins from the last week? Along those lines, another question is, how are you making progress towards your goals? Be their accountability partner. Be their integrity partner. And the last one I would say to you is what were you most proud of today? I love that one because even if someone just had a terrible day, right? Even if they're like this, I'm sick today. It's been a pretty stressful day for me. This forces me to go, huh? And then your brain shifts. It transitions. It has to. This is a new neural connection firing. And I have to look back at my day and find the good stuff. Or what am I most proud of today? Well, I'm proud I was able to give this talk to each and every one of you so that now each one of you can go and help not only your children, your family, but your teams as well. All right, so what I'd like to do now is to move on to biggest takeaway. So as I just gave you this question for your children to ask, I'm going to ask this question for you as well. And what I'll ask each and every one of you to do is to just grab a piece of paper and a pen and just write one thing down that moved the needle for you today. Could be anything that we talked about. Could be any of the three main points that I talked about, because somebody's psychology, fitness, could be the B3. But the reason why I'm having you do this, one, is that Princeton University showed that simply by writing something down, you can increase memory and retention by 25%. Now, using a pen, if you're typing, it still can be effective, but a pen is the most effective because what you're engaging in is something called kinesthetic learning. Kinesthetic learning is a new neural connection being formed by the brain and the body. And simply by writing something down, you're more likely to remember this. You're more likely to focus on this. And the whole reason I'm here today is so that you'll learn at least one thing you can take away to improve, again, your lives, your children's life, their athletic performances, their teams that they're on, everyone around them. So just take one moment and just write down something that you took away from today. Good. Jen and Joe, thank you for sharing that. Rachel, also thank you for sharing that. Feel free to put it in the chat box if you like. I'm actually going to give you a chance to put this somewhere else right now. So now what I'd like each and every one of you to do is to take out your cell phones, open up your camera app, focus on this QR code in front of you, and then click the little box that pops up. So what that is going to do, that is going to send a pre-filled email directly to me. You'll have to put in some of the information there. So your name, your phone number, if you'd like to share that with you as well for a follow-up. And then what I'd like you to do is put your biggest takeaway in there. So if you haven't written your takeaway anywhere else, you can write it here. Two things are going to happen. One, when you send this email to me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have someone on my team reply back with a worksheet from the highlights of today of what we talked about. So if you were not taking notes and you're afraid you forgot something, I got you covered. We're going to send you a branded worksheet. It's going to have the highlights. It's going to have a little bit more detail actually than what my slides did today. So you're going to have immediate access to that. The second thing that's going to happen is that you'll be entered into a drawing for a free one-on-one session with a Psyfi coach. So we got two benefits to come out of just sending us a simple email. But not only are you doing this for you with the biggest takeaway, because you're also, remember, committing this to your memory of how you're going to use this in your own lives, but you're also going to get that worksheet. So take a moment, take a screenshot of that, open it up, and at least leave the email open. So if you want to go back to it in a few minutes, because we're going to start winding down. Next, I want to move on to QCCs. So if anyone needs to see that QR code again, just let me know in the chat box. I'll put it back up there. But now I want to open this up to QCCs, questions, comments, and concerns. What do we have to say, Team Summit parents? What did you hear today that moved the needle? What do you want to know more about? What are you confused about? Feel free to unmute yourself and just ask. We'll take one at a time, please. Or maybe I was that clear and concise that there are no QCCs. That's always a good thing. All right, we'll give it another couple of seconds, but this is either a great thing or everyone's kind of still trying to process everything I said. All right, here we go. Oh, they're coming in the chat box. Okay, so Melissa and Pat said, when your athlete is exhibiting negative emotions, what is the best way to turn this around? Great question, Melissa and Pat. So one, you can ask that question that I said earlier. What are you focusing on? The typical answers are focusing on something that's negative. They're focusing on something they can't control. So you get them to focus on what they can control. Okay, let's use an example. Championship season's coming up. Their rankings are low. They're worried about if they're going to get a good placement in the competition. Well, you can't do anything about that. It's already done. But what you can do is you can show up tomorrow for practice and get ready. Shift their focus to that. Also, another great thing to do is help them celebrate the wins. Hey, what wins did you have from today? Because I know you're focusing on all the stuff that went wrong today. What are the things that actually went right? Give them a chance to refocus, to shift their mindset. These are all the things that I've been teaching the athletes at Team Summit and the coaches at Team Summit as well. And we'll talk more about this in 1 second of how we go deeper into this. We actually at Psyfi over the last 6 years, I've developed dozens of frameworks that are step-by-step processes that I use with our athletes. I can't get the QR. Can you please forward the link? Same question to Stefan. What are your child is not very competitive? Passion is. Okay, so Amy, for the QR code here, what I'll do is I'm going to put an email in the chat box for you, and you can send the email directly to this address. Let me make sure that's spelled right. takeaction@psyfi.nyc. You can just send that right there. Same question as Stefan. What do you do if your child is not very competitive? Passion for skiing, but not competing. This is great. Thank you, the Crawfords and Stefan, for asking that. What I would say around that is, again, this goes back to having that agreement with them. Hey, what do you want to be supported in? What are your goals? Like, look, even people who have a passion for skiing, they do want to improve, right? I've been snowboarding over 30 years. I'm still improving every single time I go out in the mountain. I always have a focus on what I'm going to work on. If it's a new trick, if it's a new tree line to ride, something. Ask them what they're passionate about. Be direct. Don't assume. Ask them to engage in that agreement that we talked about. Hey, I want to make an agreement with you. I want to support you. Another question came in, and thank you. I'll be private with this. When high-performing athletes verbally announce how horrible they have done and they're not in the top 10, their teammates are maybe not performing as well as they feel horrible about, and what their teammate is verbalizing. Any advice? I'm trying to understand this question here. Please give me a moment. Okay, so it sounds like what's going on is they're engaging in comparison. I'm not sure if I understand the question precisely, so forgive me if I don't. If not, you can feel free to clarify this. What I'm hearing is that basically both the teammate and your athlete is not doing as well, or maybe your athlete did well and their teammate didn't do as well. Thank you, CV. And what they're engaging is comparison. So one short phrase I have for you is comparison is the killer of joy. Comparison is the killer of joy. Yes, Mark gets it. Thank you, Mark. It is the number one thing. If you like, this is where God, thank God that I was not born in this generation, that I was born when I was born, because if I had social media at my beck and call, I would have millions of ways to feel horrible about myself every single day through comparison. We do this on a regular basis sometimes too. This person's better than I am. They have a better position, a better office, a better car, more money, a nicer husband, a prettier wife. We all do this. Children are the same. If they're engaging in that, this is where we talk about the one thing that we're known for is focus, honing that focus muscle. We got to retrain their focus muscle to get away from comparison and focus on themselves, focus on what they're doing. This is something else, is a much deeper dive question. Unfortunately, I can't get into everything I'd like to, but this is all about doing things of celebrating the wins. Is going to be a tactic you can use, asking them what their highlights were, what did they learn. These are going to be ways to shift their mindset from being negatively focused to positively focused on something else that's not in their control or someone else, focusing on what they can control and what they're all about. Let's see, this came in. Athletes saying that they are bad, but others don't perform as well. So it makes them feel like they think everyone else is worse than them. The person who is better says how horrible they are, even though they're high performing. It makes everyone else around them feel worse. Yes. So this is called social. So thank you, private person, for saying this. This is what we call social contagion. This is why I wanted to have this conversation with each and every one of you today, because if me and CB and all the rest of the coaches are doing this incredible job of making your kids high performing and flexing their focus muscles and getting them to be positive and putting them in the great mindset, but they come home and it's just full of negativity, it's just full of comparison, it's just full of, focusing on things they can't control. This is the outcome. And and all of us can probably appreciate this. We live in this world. Most people, so the statistics say that over 70% of the time, 90% of people are negatively focused throughout their entire day. So 3/4 of 90% of people's days are negatively focused. I don't think most of us, if you work with any other people, which I work with people all day, you can see how prominent this is in our culture. Turn the news on. Open up social media. It is not difficult to see how people are negatively focused and how contagious this can be. This is all about creating these environments for them. This is what we do at Psyfi too, as we do our team training, which we'll talk about in a second. Another question came in. What if your child decide not to really try the competition in an effort to protect themselves if they don't win or podium? The infamous fear of failure. We all have this. So this is another deep dive question. So I'll give you just a brief thing about this right now. Ask them why. Why are you scared of failing? What does it mean if you fail? Or if you don't win, if you don't podium? Here's one bigger concept to think about. We all assign meaning to things. Our brains are what we call meaning-making machines. We're always making meaning about everything. You can make meaning about this green glow behind me, or the fact that I have these books up here, or I can make meaning of the fact that some people are on camera and some people are not. Some people have their ceiling on, some people are actually engaged with me. Or I can make no meaning out of it. We get to choose the meaning. If the meaning empowers us, choose that. If it disempowers us, don't choose that one. So just when I would say, when they start wanting not to compete, ask them what meaning they're assigning to failure. This is one of the other big lessons that we go over, is fear of failure in our training programs. Last question here, and then we'll jump onto something else. Is would be nice to get more insight and support around the differences between genders, performance, and comparison. Yeah, that is a big one. So this is another rabbit hole, another deep dive. I'll just say there are gender differences between how our brains are developing as children compared to males, females, non-binary, and things like that. I can't go into it totally right now because I would need more specific questions to be out of this, but we do work with males, females, and non-binaries at Psyfi, and the tactics that we employ here work for everyone. I've not seen a single athlete that I've worked with, doesn't matter if they're younger, older, a captain, or they just started the sport, if they're non-binary, transgender, the tools and tactics that we've developed here at Psyfi have been not only come from decades of science that I've pulled them from, but also decades of experience that I have, as well as we've been doing our own internal research for almost 6 years now. So all the tactics that we do work. And the insight there are, I can just confirm what this person's asking is that, yes, there are differences and they do need to be addressed. So speaking of that, what I would like to talk about now is what's next. So the genesis of this conversation came with CB and I talking about, hey, I wanted to offer something to the parents because I've been having these great results with the children and these great feedback from the coaches, and we're loving it. But I wanted to give something to each and every one of you because I wanted you to be able to create that environment where no matter what your child decides to do, they can succeed. So what we've done is we developed what we call the Championship Mindset Program. Now I know that the championships are coming up and over the next 4 weeks, that each one of your kids will be participating in either regionals, nationals, or some other level. And so what we've done is we created actually a program at Psyfi for this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put something in the chat box for each and every one of you right now. And I'll ask you to take a look at this, and we'll talk briefly about it as well. So as this uploads, what we created is a form.
Okay, you're back. You were out there for a minute, David, but you're back.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you so much. So let me put that, I'm going to put back this, just bear with me one moment. I'm uploading this parents program for you. And what I'm also going to do, I'm also just going to share it with you quickly while that loads. Why won't this let me do this? There we go. So what we developed for Team Summit is this program right here. And what we're going to do, and I love this because some of the questions that each one of you asked are dealing with these questions right here. These are the top 4 topics that we've identified and working with, for me, working with athletes for over 20 years, but also I've been asking questions and polling each one of you. I've done this with all of our athletes too. And these are the 4 top topics that each and every athlete has struggled with. We talked about overcoming performance anxiety, right? How to ask for help. This was one of the ones that we identified when people are, we're comparing ourselves. Developing laser-like focus and controlling your emotions. This is with spiraling, dealing with negative thoughts, anxiety. And then last was integrating lessons and losses after competition. Hey, what the person that asked about what if their child doesn't even want to compete because they don't want a podium. They're focusing on what they're going to lose, not what they can learn. So this is going to be a 4-week program that we're going to run through. We're going to run this starting next Wednesday for 3 weeks. Then we're going to give the athletes a break of 2 weeks to compete and then integrate these lessons. And we're going to have a follow-up as the 4th week. And we're going to talk about, hey, what did you learn? How did you apply these lessons? How did life come up and punch you in the face? I love the Mike Tyson quote. Everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face. We've all been there. We've all been punched in the face by life at some point. And that's where you really find out who you are and what you're capable of. So this program is going to run over the next 4 weeks, starting next Wednesday. This has been directly created with Team Summit and CB. If you have access to it, you should have access to the chat box. You'll see that you can download that PDF right there that gives a full explanation of everything that's in the program. Also, what we're doing and some athlete testimonials in there. To give you just a quick breakdown of the program, this is what the program looks like from a 4-week standpoint. Each week, it'll be a 50-minute live group coaching session with me and one of my other Psyfi coaches, including a Q&A. So it ends up being about an hour coaching session live with me every week. There'll be 4 weekly emails we send out with instructional videos. They're gonna be on the topics that we talked about. We're also going to get the mobility training exercises. There are going to be videos for that as well, once every week. We're going to give them psych bites, which is what we call our mindset approach. So they're going to have psych bites. They're going to have these little small things they can watch on their cell phones anytime, anywhere, where it's going to talk about each lesson that we talked about that week. They're also going to get a weekly recap sheet. So basically, just as I said to you when you sent me that email, you're going to get a recap sheet. We're very scientific at Psyfi, so we don't leave anything up to chance. So we make sure that we provide everything we possibly can for our athletes as well as you. They're also going to get a weekly performance worksheet to help them integrate the lessons. And then last but not least, because we are scientific, they are going to get a pre-performance evaluation and then a post-performance evaluation. So they can see where they are and then how far they've come in those 4 weeks. We launched this program we launched a similar program like this about a year ago with collegiate athletes. We had amazing responses to it. You can see some of the testimonials that are in the PDF that I put in the chat box. We did this for those athletes. We did it for $399 for the 4 weeks. But because I want to be participating with each and every one of you and your children and I develop relationships with each and every one of your athletes, we're actually breaking the price down to $249. And that's going to be done over, I'll bring this up in just 1 second, if you just bear with me. So the price will be $249 and includes all the things that I just mentioned. And I'll bring up one more thing for you to look at. And this will give you access to this. So if you have Venmo, this is the easiest way to do it right now. You can just bring out your phone, take a photo, bring up your phone's camera, open this up. The QR code will bring you right directly to our Venmo account. It's $249. Like I said, it's a $399 value. We did this a few months ago for our collegiate athletes at that price, but I wanted to do a reduced price because I've been working with Team Summit for this time. And for one little incentive for each one of you, the first 10 people that sign up are going to get a complimentary one-on-one training session with a certified Psyfi coach. So like I said, we're all about offering value at Psyfi, the most value we can. Like I said, as I started the conversation off, I wish I had this when I was a teenager, when I was in my 20s, when I was in my 30s. If I knew half, a quarter, an eighth, a 16th of things that I know now, I can only imagine what my life would look like. Also, if Venmo is not an option for you, you can also use PayPal. I can give you the address for that. It's david@psyfi.com. Or sorry, I'll just put it in the chat. So if Venmo is not of your choice, you can also you can use that address for PayPal. And of course, if you have any QCCs about the program more than it's in the PDF that I sent you, feel free to ask. But what I'd like to do as we wind things down here, to be mindful of our time, is this last phrase. Common sense is not common practice. This applies for all of us. Because what we've talked about today, the brain, body, breath training, right? Make sure you're training your brain, your body, and breath at the same time. That seems like common sense. But before we created Psyfi, no one had actually scientifically measured and put this together. I showed you neck rolls, doing something to open up your body and de-stress you within seconds. Move more. That's going to de-stress you. Breathe in through your nose, not out through your mouth. That's going to help de-stress you, right? Close your eyes when you need a break. All this stuff seems like common sense. But one thing I've noticed as a high performance psychologist for nearly 25 years is that common sense is not common practice. Most of the things that we've talked about today, you've heard about in some way, shape, or form, but maybe you're not implementing them. The difference is taking action. The difference is implementing them. So what I want to encourage each one of you to do is take that takeaway that you learned today and figure out how you can use it tomorrow. Amy has a question, is there a recommended age group for the program? This program is built specifically for Team Summit, so it's going to range from all Team Summit athletes' ages. Hopefully that helps, Amy. Because I said this program, the one that I just sent you the PDF on, the one I just spoke of, was designed specifically for Team Summit. CB and I talked about this. The lessons that are in there were based on all the athletes' feedback that we've had over the past year almost of working with Team Summit. So this is actually directed right at them. So last, if you want to perform at your highest level, I just want you to remember this. You need to train your brain, body, and breath together. If you take nothing else away from what you learned today, please remember that these three things are not independent. Psychology and fitness are no longer independent modalities of training, of improving, of self-improvement. The reason why our name is Psyfi, it's literally psychology, fitness together and shortened. So parents, everyone, I want to say thank you so much for your time. CB, thank you for having me. Thank you for the opportunity. Everyone, thank you for giving me your time and going a little bit over today. I loved all the questions. If you do have more of them, feel free to reach out to CB and I'll be more than happy to address them. Like I said, if you want to join the program, there was the QR code, or you can use David@Psyfi. That's for Venmo and PayPal. You can find me that way. Be sure to send that follow-up email to me if you want that worksheet. We put that worksheet together for you so that each one of you have access. Yes, Andrea, would you like the QR code for the email or for the program? Email, there it is, Andrea. Thank you. And the most important thing to remember is train like you play. If you want to perform at a high level, your brain, body, and breath need to be trained together. And that's how simple it can be. Yes, thank you, Molly. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Jen. And last but not least, one more value add for all of you, just in case you didn't get enough out of it today, is one more QR code for you. Open your phone up, hit that QR code with your camera, and that's going to bring us to our website. You'll click on a tab that's called Tools. There are over 500 psychology fitness videos on there for you to take from now. These are all free for now. We are doing a program starting in June where these will be moved over into a subscription base, but for now they're free. Everything from mobility training to exercise to breath work to mindset tricks to how to adjust your focus, how to deal with anxiety, how to do performance anxiety, everything is in there. So simply snap that little one right there and you'll have access to those over 500 videos. Let me just make sure I didn't miss anything in the chats here. Yes, Crawfords, thank you. Team Summit, thank you. Mark, thank you. Melissa, thank you. Loved it. Look forward to hearing from all of you. And if you have any more QCCs, please send them to david@psyfi.nyc. Otherwise, everyone enjoy your evening. Yes, Amy saying, can you possibly consider an ongoing session for parents and integrate this into the orientation? Yes, yeah, we can definitely do that, Amy. So orientation for Team Summit, even better. There you go, CB. I think we have a program request. Yes, so what Amy's asking, CB, is can you possibly consider an ongoing session for parents and integrate this into the orientation for Team Summit? CB's giving me the double thumbs up. So Amy, thank you for that. And this is what it's all about. I want to say, I'll say this one last thing and to close with. The reason why I wanted to do tonight is because I identified a need in my head that I said, if we don't take care of this, there's going to be a gap in what we're actually trying to accomplish, which honestly is to fuel all our children's dreams. And that's why I wanted to do this session for free tonight, is to say, hey, listen, if there's something I can contribute to each and every one of you to make your life 1% better today, there will be a huge payoff in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year from now. This would be great at the beginning of next season. Jen and Joe are also saying they want that training session, CB. And I would love to be, yes, and yes, Jen giving the double peace signs from Jen did. So I think she's in as well. But yeah, we can talk more about this. Absolutely. But everyone, thank you again so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you for dealing with my voice going in and out a little bit tonight due to sickness, but I wanted to be here for you. Server's not responding to the QR code. Can you please email it or try again, from Rachel? Rachel, what QR code were you referring to? Was it the Venmo? Was it the follow-up or our website? One with the videos, the last one. Oh, okay. So what you can do is simply go, the website will be getting a bunch of traffic right now from you guys, which is great. So go to Psyfi, that web address right there, and then you're going to hit the tools tab. And that's going to bring you to our library, which is at over 500 psychology, fitness related videos and more to come. You can also check us out on social. We're redoing our social right now, so there'll be a lot of awesome stuff coming up. Articles on Medium, any of the social channels, we're there at Psyfi NYC, and that's it. All right, so CB, thank you for this opportunity. Parents, everyone, thank you for participating. Thank you for putting everything in your chat. If there's anything other follow-ups, just please feel free to email me. Also, Phil, thanks for working the tech for us tonight. I appreciate that as well. And each and every one of you, enjoy the rest of your evening. Pray for some more snow. We have some more coming. I'm watching it outside the window right now. Thank you, Maddie.
Night, everybody.